Welcome to Rauta's opinion video. Not so much an opinion, but more like story. Like, how does things get done with interviews with Rauta? What are the biggest disappointments? What are the biggest success? And all that stuff. I wanted to enlighten you a little bit about this topic. First of all, because with Steelfest we had some kind of a setbacks we hadn't prepared for. I mean, who gets prepared for an illness or last minute cancellations and whatever. And some people kind of were understandably annoyed with some sound quality issues and all that stuff. So I wanted to share you these kind of like the biggest things, both good and bad, when doing interviews for the last 2 years. As always and always with opinion videos or whatever, let's have some beer. This is from our friend at Laitilan Virvoitusomatiedät Brewery of Laitila, and this is Kukko, that is Rooster Weiss beer. So cheers to you all viewers, grab yourself something to drink and we'll get right on to it. Refreshing. So there were some setbacks at Steelfest, but it's not obviously the only one. And usually these kind of setbacks are not related to any given location, not an event, not so much maybe even bands. But when all things get combined, there are lots of fingers pointing to different things which could be better, how we could have prepared better and all that stuff. Now, obviously, when things go really smooth, everything is just like walking on rose petals. That is, things are happening in right in time. Schedules don't get screwed. The interviewer persons, the interviewees, they are just interesting persons. They're friendly. They are talkative. They are not in a hurry. They are ready to talk whatever I get in my mind to ask them questions and whatever, and most of the time it goes really sweet and smoothly, and I am usually positively surprised. And that's not because I would have low expectations. I don't actually pick stuff, I don't choose bands or artists because I would have low expectation. I actually select and contact artists and bands which I find personally interesting, which I find bands and whatever that could have have something interesting in their minds, be it about politics, be it about music, be it about lyrics, situation around the world, just whatever. It might be a occultic thing, it might be related to some inner or outer kind of a things within any given country. And there are lots of topics which I find fascinating. Sometimes they might be in a topics which I would talk in my everyday life with friends and whatnot. But when it comes to an artist, I find very different things interesting. That goes as well as when I'm reading interviews, from a zine or website, or when I'm just creating those questions on my own. But like I said, many of these things are actually more or less disappointing when things don't go as planned, when things go south, like the saying goes. For example, self-censoring is one of the things which actually annoy me quite a bit. Now, censorship has been a topic that has been a lot of discussed lately here in YouTube, even on Rauta channel as well. And some people say that it's big corporations or governments, they're just censoring and things don't get into daylight because of all that stuff. But I don't know how many people out there, like how many of you, dear audience, actually figure out how many bands are censoring what they say. I mean, they might say things right out in the open when I'm asking them questions. They might blurt out certain views and opinions. They might say things not necessarily like bad mouthing or calling names or anything like that necessarily, but something they might feel they want to edit out later on because they are probably a little bit afraid of their label, other bands, promoters, events, festivals, or because they later on felt that they were maybe too goofy, too much humor involved, or maybe they are afraid that they might have just hurt some feelings. So some of those interview materials are just left out in a, metaphorically speaking, on the floor of the edit room. And that is always a sad case in my opinion because I want the message go out. I am not so much afraid if somebody will get hurt or offended because I mean that just happens when we're people. I could link you a good stand-up comedy thing related to metal by the way about getting offended and how little it actually means. But that's a different topic. So I kind of understand that some people feel like they need to just get something out, but that's kind of a annoying thing to do. Now, other things. Obviously, we've had our setbacks with gear malfunctioning. Maybe sometimes microphones were not working as intended, and which kind of shows that we are still, in a way, noobs to the business. Personally, I don't have too much experience about recording software, hardware, be it microphones, cameras, or whatever. And meanwhile, I have very experienced camera people behind me. They're not always with me. I mean, their schedules, what up. This is not nobody's day job. I'm just trying to explain how it works. And that is also the reason why we don't have our primary kind of a best gear setup in every possible situation when we might have an interview going on. For example, this happened at Steelfest 2019. We had some nice interviews planned and scheduled and whatever, and since our main camera person got ill, we had to kind of replace not only her equipment and talent, but just everything was like a kind of a big patch up kind of thing, like having a first aid kit, you know, those band-aids to replace what was just a thing like bleeding. So we had two choices: whether or not we're gonna do an interview with crappier setup, that is poorer sound quality and not as good camera setup, you know, it's multiple items included, or then just don't do the interview at all. So obviously I understand when people are like saying like, okay, this is no way too noisy, you had sound quality problems and all that stuff. I get it. I totally understand people are pissed, people are annoyed, they would like to have good quality. I mean, who doesn't? And that doesn't really help my guilt, if you will, that these are problems that we could have fixed with, I don't know, better budget, better know-how, better experience, all that stuff. But I'm just saying things don't always go as planned. Things don't go perfect, unless except in a perfect world, that is. Also, sometimes, I'm not gonna mention names, I'm not gonna go to the bad mouthing thing. This is not so much about self-censoring, but it's like not needed. Sometimes band might have agreed to do a interview, and I could have been, you know, planning to do it between a time span, you know, and the band doesn't even bother to say that they're not gonna do it. Maybe they got drunk and it was kind of an accident. Maybe they just wanted to take piss out of me. I don't know. And to be honest, doesn't really matter. But these are kind of things which just get out of our hands. Like I said, we could invest money in gear setup. We could do this a day job, except when we can't. But I mean, when it's out of our hands, when it's like when we have a place that is poor acoustics, and when we don't have that better gear setup, things just go like a domino puzzle. They just start falling, and suddenly you don't have a good interview at all. For example, one of the interviews we did at Steelfest, I think it turned out great. Probably the best interview we had there, in my opinion, the best conversation, so to speak. Very interesting facts about the band and all that stuff. It didn't come into reality because the band itself wasn't happy with the sound quality, which I kind of understand, but then again, I don't fully agree with the problem, being bad sound quality, and as such, it's been shelved for at least time being. We're looking into it if you can fix those sound problems. My point here is sometimes because we want to be respectful towards the bands and artists, we don't want to push out material which is not okay with the band, and then things go south. That might mean that I have promised to deliver you an interview, but because the artist itself doesn't want it to be published, then you got me like my pants down. That is, I promised something I couldn't deliver because of the band or something other that was going on. But like I said, it's most of the time things go nicely. Like even some of the bands which I don't personally listen to or follow might turn out to be real nice. I mean, people in usual when they're bands and they're doing interviews, they are real nice. They are mostly the kind of people I could end up having, I don't know, night with booze and whatever friends. And in general, people are kind of they're probably honest. I like to think that way anyway, and they are friendly. So it's like they have social skills, and yet they are also willing to sacrifice their own time in order to talk to the media. In my case, Rauta channel. Obviously, we can go as cynical as we want and say, well, they're just promoting their band and music and career as such. So basically, they're just doing their work in order to earn money, and that's a fair thing to say. But then again, we might also think that it's not like Rauta channel is that big that it's only for getting money. I think people in bands, honestly, they want to express themselves. They want to explain what is going on. They want to talk about hard topics. And I know that people who know my ways of asking questions know that I'm not always asking the most easy questions. I might be putting them between a hard place and a rock, or the rock and a hard place, and sometimes that brings out the best qualities in those artists and bands, and they are telling me interesting stories, maybe because they were not expecting these kind of things, and maybe that for a second they need to think about it, but when it turns out, I think it's kind of a relieving moment. It's like you said something you wasn't planning to do, but it turned out to be good. Now, like I said, most of the time I'm really happy, and I'm happy that I have gotten so much kind of like respect from the artist. Respect might not be the proper word, but I mean, it doesn't really matter if we're not that big a channel, and if they don't even know who I am or what this channel is about, because this channel is not about me as much. Some people might want to say it is. It's more about that I want to deliver those conversations to you, dear audience, because it is as much for you guys as it is for me, but it's different. For me, it's like meeting some of the cool artists, sometimes even my idols, if there are any, but in the end, it wouldn't be worth the time if it wasn't, in order to do those interviews. I mean, having a chit chat with some artist can be fun, can be cool, can be interesting, a learning experience even. But delivering that stuff to you, that is the most rewarding thing. So it always pains me when we are having these troubles, whether it's about cancellations or gear screw up or whatever. And it's always annoying, not only because of me. I don't think it as much as like wasting my time, but when I'm wasting my camera people's time, it gets annoying because, like I said, we could be doing other things like watching shows, man, having something to eat, go to the toilet, whatever. I mean, because it's like we all have this certain amount of time and we want to make the best out of it. So for me, making best out of it on any given festivals is like when I'm doing these interviews with bands and when things are going nicely. Obviously, it helps the channel grow. I am not denying that. So the importance of interviews is a big deal to me personally. But like I said, it's more than just, for the sake of channel. It's more than just, for me to have this talk. It's for you people out there. I am trying to dig out some answers and opinions for you guys. And it makes me happy when you're happy with those interviews. So when you are annoyed with sound quality or whatever quality, uh, it annoys me as well. It doesn't make me happy person. And like I said, this is nobody's day job. So this is not like a dream come true. So Jerry, you're getting paid for doing those interviews. No, I'm not. Nobody is. What I hope to be someday, that is, that I could, just pay even my camera crew to get those travel expenses. I don't worry so much about myself because eventually this is a passion thing. This is, you're just doing for the sake of it, for the love of it. So I hope this kind of I don't know, not an opinion, but more like a story video about why we do what we do, why some things get better, some things are worse, and what are the reasons, the usual excuses when things don't happen, or when they happen, when the things are just great. I hope this will be enlightening you a little bit. Maybe I'm just talking once again too much, but anyhow, should you have any comments, opinions, questions about the interviews we're doing, and you have ideas how to make them better, feel free to drop a message right there and I'll get back to you. Your ideas are most welcome. Sometimes you have the best ideas which I cannot even think of. Sometimes you are just too nice to say compliments, which I totally am grateful for. So cheers to you, have yourself a good beer, and see you with another Rauta video out. Bye bye.